We are live. Yes, I don't do a stream on a short notice, but I figured, hey, it's the 4th of July. Let's take this opportunity to shit on, this fascist holiday and have a little fun, I guess, at the same time. I mean, I know my stream on 4th of July 2 years ago with Dead Man Animations and the Falcon General really triggered some people that used to be fans of mine. I think the person was called like something New Republic. I forgot what his name was. He followed Be Liberal, and he became and I became his enemy after that stream because he got really triggered that I mentioned the Pledge of Allegiance is basically, what is that word I'm looking for? Propaganda. Is it a form of indoctrination?
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, whatever floats your boat. I mean, you want to be in the Matrix, stay in fantasy land, that's on you. But some of us live in the real world, and we actually have studied actual American history, and I mean real history. None of this fucking whitewashed, romanticized bullshit that's fed to us when we were kids. Yet, we're the brainwashed ones, according to these reactionaries. I find this fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cult for these people. I mean, they can't deal with like real history, and they can't. I mean, at the end of the day, America needs to be fucking destroyed, and this we can't just keep doing this over and over again. And July 4th is going to have to be a day that's going to be either turned into a new holiday. I think that's probably the best thing to go going forward under a new socialist regime, is just to get rid of like what would be a good day? Happy Turtle Island Day.
That doesn't sound so bad to me. But the very concept of America has to be destroyed. Because to destroy America, you have to destroy it from the root. You have to destroy the ideas of America. Because what is America? Because when you ask your average American what is America, you're going to get vastly different answers. And to thoroughly destroy America, you have to actually destroy everything that makes America America. But what makes America America also applies to Britain, France, Germany, Italy, basically every reactionary Western power. So you can't just destroy America at its roots, because all these countries have been inspired by each other in one way or another.
I would argue almost every country on Earth needs to be completely dismantled and replaced with a new regime that I can think of. Maybe not all, but I would say.
Well, let's focus on the West and where we live, for simplicity's sake, for our viewers, because
if I start going into stuff like Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, people are going to get lost real quick.
Well, honestly, I do not believe it's good. Before we get to the meat of the topic, I do not agree that we can get to communism in 100 years. I feel like we need a longer time than 100 years to completely get to post-capitalism.
We would need worldwide socialism, I've said this before and said it again, at least 100, 200 years. So
we cannot. I don't believe it's realistic to do it in less than that. I just don't believe that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We don't know what any contradictions that would pop up when we get to the socialist phase completely. We never, if you really think about it, I'm not doing this trot shit or this not true socialism Scotsman fallacy, but we never truly completely got past the capitalist phase. We got to aspects of socialism. We've had socialist style governments, but we never actually completely overthrew capitalism. And I feel like if we don't know how socialism would fully work without capitalism, like basically putting its boots down our necks, I don't think we have any business of basically talking about hypothetical communism could be done in 60 years after, or whatever amount of years after socialism. I just don't think that's going to work. There's too many things we got to take into consideration. There's cultural stuff we have to take into consideration. Maybe in some countries you might be able to do it on a smaller scale, but on a worldwide scale, it's going to take a lot longer. And I just do not agree with that notion at all. I really don't.
Yeah,
And
I pretty much agree with that.
because capitalism did not fully establish itself completely until centuries after feudalism was completely destroyed.
And it varied in different countries. In those countries, it varied from area to area. Like, is there like things that we would have to go into in greater detail?
What I mean by destroying America, I don't mean by bombing the fucking country or just killing people. That's not what I mean by destroying. What I mean is the ideas of America, not the place that you live or the place that you work or your family. No, it's about the ideas of America. Because I have to clarify that, because not everyone thinks that when people say America needs to be destroyed, people think, oh, no, you don't mean just bombing the place. No, that's ultra leftist bullshit. We mean just challenging the ideas and dismantling them. Even if we successfully, it won't happen in America, in any place, had a socialist revolution, we would have to challenge the ideas head on. We have to do it before the revolution and after the revolution. This isn't going to happen immediately.
Yeah, so, and by challenging the ideas, we need people to look at stuff like the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution as basically just toilet paper that we need to use, or stuff to throw in the fire. We need to view stuff like the Supreme Court as basically a monarchical system. Basically, these are just a feudal holdover that got into the Republican system. Basically,
of course,
and we also need to get into people's minds. This is the most important one. True republicanism cannot happen without socialism.
Of course, another thing we gotta clarify though. And this isn't going to be without violence, but that's not because we desire it. It's because the violent reaction to those who benefit from the system are going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that socialism doesn't take hold. So this is going to be a violent and bloody process. That's why, like, after we're done overthrowing the capitalist system, we're not just going to be able to go to communism. That shouldn't even be our concern. The main concern for a socialist society is basically rebuilding fucking the countries that were just destroyed, because that's whether we like it or not, the capitalists will fucking destroy everything in their path rather than let us use the stuff that they had us build. So we'd be spending a lot of our time rebuilding as well. So it would be a rebirth. I'm trying to be careful how I word this, because Nazis say that, but I mean a literal rebirth of every country on the earth. And of course, America, since we're Americans, we're talking about from the American perspective. This country, as we know it, will not exist. Majority of Americans, if you're, like I said earlier in the stream, when you ask them about what America is, they can't really define what America should be, because they don't know. You go to Florida, you ask the person in Florida, what is America? They're going to give you a vastly different answer than someone who lives in California, or someone who lives in Illinois, or someone that lives in Missouri, or someone that lives in Washington, or someone that lives in Mississippi. Of course, it also applies if you ask someone who lives in different parts of whatever state. Since I'm in California, those who live in Orange County, where I live, are going to have a vastly different idea what America is compared to someone that lives in Northern California.
Or if, say, you go to, God forbid if you do this, you go to a native tribe and actually ask them that, see what answer they'll give you.
Like, what I mean by destroy, we don't mean literal destruction. We mean ideological destruction. But again, this topic is very heavy, and it's not for something. It would take multiple streams to explain what we actually mean by destroying the current system that exists. Because one thing, misinformation that I had to bring this up because it is important, and I hate bringing up these fucking fuckers. You know who I'm talking about. The pep socks will have you believe that socialism is about building. That is true. It's not about destroying, but you cannot really separate creation and destruction. They're one and the same. To create something new, you have to destroy what the old systematic order that exists. Those who say that want to preserve the current order, but they want to add a few things on that's there, so it keeps their class position and keep the proletariat from rebelling. At least give them enough breadcrumbs where they're where they're not in complete poverty, but just enough so they still have basically all the power. They essentially want some form of social democracy.
They want people to be just above the point of being able just to barely get by at best.
Now, this is not off topic for the stream because it has everything to do with it. Because, of course, America is not unique when it comes to settler colonialism. It's not. It's just I'm using the American example because I live in America and I know more about the country that I live more than Canada, which Comrade Weisfeld is a part of, Jason Unruh, or some of our comrades in Britain, like the Angelcis. We have to talk from personal experience because Canada has its own colonial history that's as bad as the United States. I mean, recently, this is a few years ago, that there was a Catholic school that had a mass grave of children.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing we're going to have to be dealing with too, is reconciliation, because there's going to have to be a lot of truth and reconciliation after everything is all said and done.
Whether we like it or not, I believe in this. So reparations has to be on the table. There's no negotiation on this one, because
the fact it's even a discussion is simply because of black racism.
Yes.
There has been reparations for other groups of people, and I will go through the sources and find them and list them. Do not tell me Africans or Native peoples do not deserve reparations.
They do, and if you really think about it, I'm not okay. I'm gonna put this up because I don't know anything about Canada. I see. By the way, go to Abraham Weisfeld's channel. Those who have not watched it, his content is very educational. He's actually been in the Palestinian territories. He's actually been shot, and he's currently being targeted by the Zionist lobby in Canada.
Yes, our enemies are trying to target us anywhere and everywhere that they can. And well, one thing to say as well, we need people in Canada to push republicanism. There's no reason in 2023 that Canada should be under a monarchy.
Monarchy shouldn't even exist in general in the year 2022. Well, sorry, 2023. God, I barely slept in the past few days.
That's okay. Well, that's interesting to note because today is the day that America broke away from British monarchy, and yet here in 2023, that remnant of feudalism still exists in a significant portion of countries, actually, more than you would think.
All right. Sorry, I'm actually eating as I'm actually doing the stream. Anyway, the American Revolution, up until recently, we did not get an actual, really accurate representation of the American Revolution until in recent years. Majority of the so-called historians, I call them so-called historians, gave us a whitewashed and romanticized version of the American Revolution. Let's be honest, majority of these historians were white. It wasn't until recently you had historians like Gerald Hone, I think that's his name. I'm very bad with names, forgive me. That actually exposed the fraud that is the American Revolution. Talking about facts that weren't that well known really by many people, like how the revolution was not a revolution at all. They were afraid of the slave uprisings that were happening. And that many of the African diaspora sided with the British in the American Revolution. Which, if you understand the context, it actually makes sense why there's so much hostility towards the African diaspora, the descendants of slaves in the modern day, because they have been against this country from the start. They see them as the enemy. Blackness is the enemy of white power. Always has been. And always will be as long as this country continues to exist.
Yep. America was born out of white nationalism, and it will die trying to uphold white nationalism. It will be that last bastion.
Even if it's at the expense of their children, these white supremacists do not care. They would rather they'd rather their children be, live in destitute than allow people they look at as inferiors to get 1 ounce of rights, even though giving them rights benefits everyone else as well. I don't understand why we're having this debate regarding reparations in the year 2023. It should be obvious. And I'm going by the so-called Marxists that oppose reparations.
Well, let's be honest here. People like Yankee Tanky, Caleb Maupin, Haas, Um, to call them Marxist is just completely asinine. Like their whole purpose is just to push the direct conversation more and more rightwards. So it's again left wing aesthetics. I'm using air quotes.
I don't even
And
like
pushing
he literally said I'm a right wing communist. Like, what the fuck does that even mean?
means he's a fascist.
He is. The thing that I had once had empathy for him.
Well, he was good at pulling people in, and just it's really just amazing how long he was able to get away with his con job.
I would not be shocked if Yankee Tanky is a sexual predator, just like Caleb Maupin is, and that's why, like, he basically quickly backed out.
Yeah.
It's like, how many of these peoples are predators? How many of them? I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest.
Also, I saw one of the things on the video. It was King Charles the First that was executed, not King Charles the Second. King Charles the Second was the guy who invented the Great Britain in what was it? It was 1680, 1690. He came up with the concept, and then it was 1722 that the Great Britain was formed, the British Empire.
Yeah, he was the king who came back and restored the monarchy and implemented basically the first fascist counter-revolution.
Yeah, it's just most people might know him as Charles the 12th, I think, of Scotland. It was either Charles the 12th or Charles the 11th of Scotland. I can't remember for sure. I think it was 12th. Watch it be 13th now, and I'm just fucking off by, but, yeah. G'day, Canisius. G'day, Chrissy.
Well, the particular topic of the video, what's great about this is there's multiple examples we could talk about because America is not unique, and I said this earlier, Storm, before you came.
Are you sure they're not extra special boys?
Well,
extra exceptional little special boys?
Well, you're from Britain, and it didn't seem like the Brits really have a much problem with 4th of July. They seem to be pretty cool with it.
Nowadays.
Nowadays.
You go back 100 years ago, no.
I know,
like pre World War One. Pre World War One, we weren't like that. Basically, it's World War One and World War Two that kind of changed us to being like, whoa, American holidays. Before then, like, we were still very spiteful about it. The reason why the British bourgeoisie didn't much care about the 4th of July post sort of 1800s is because whom do you think the first country to imperialize America was? Like, when imperialist capitalism came around, but we sent our industry straight there. I mean, we did this to fucking, like, a lot of the privileged countries that either used to be or were still in our empire. And privilege is a hard word to throw, but, like, basically, like, countries that were either mass exuberance of wealth or, like, countries like America, where they actually did have a form of privilege. So, when Americans did their big war of independence, they were the least profitable colony in so many ways. Yet they were one of the most, if not the most, privileged colonies around because of its large white population and the high amount of affluent people from Britain that would move into America. I mean, George Washington himself was the most decorated general in the British military when the American Revolution happened, and was the richest man in all of America. And he wasn't like a British general in the Americas. No, he was a British general in India. He moved over to America with his fortune, like a lot of British generals, feudal lords. capitalists, and rich peasants. Because America was a hotspot of like, oh, it's the white state. Like all of the other British states are either like prison colonies or had large black populations, and so like, or brown populations, and so like the whole big thing with America that's got a lot of white people over there was, oh, it's a white paradise. And then so because there was all these powerful white people there, the British had an interest to basically keep to them. As far as the British were concerned, when they got to the point of the plains, they considered America a bit of a dead end. They were like, oh, we thought we had this massive land that we were going to expand into, and it's a desert. And so they kind of, that's one of the reasons why the British were so willing to sign the deals with the natives. There was more reasons to it than that, but one of the really big driving forces, and there's comments from the British military on this, the plains were considered a death sentence, and if you go look up anything about Manifest Destiny, the Americans knew this. That's why they conned Americans to go plantate across. Go on, you guys run ahead, we'll catch yous up. And got, poor peasants to go and colonize the West, and some more richer peasants, but it was mostly the poor peasants. That's where the homesteaders come from. Wait, I thought America was supposed to be leaving to do the more developed capitalism than the British. It's one of the funny myths that the American bourgeoisie push. Not so much the average American, but like the American bourgeoisie will try and have you know as if the British were like fucking, a backwards feudal country and that the Americans were really bringing things forward. Britain was literally just entering the Industrial Revolution when the Americans did their fight for freedom. And I mean, it's good for them to get rid of the monarchy. Not when you're replacing the old boss with literally the old boss. The guys who ran the colony before they took over it were the same guys that took over. George Washington was one of the leading people in the US. And so when they took over, it was just George Washington being like, right then, we're changing leadership to me still. And what's it? The game had not really changed. Like it's as I always say, American patriotism is very much a recompartmentalized, more white supremacist version of British patriotism. And I mean, British patriotism is white supremacist enough as it is, but America takes the cake on this one. It's the most vulgar elements of British, French, and Spanish American colonialism ram-packed into one. But what we see with the American and their independence movement is a sham. They sell out everything about it, and then as soon as it come to the Industrial Revolution really kicking into the mid 1800s, and you started to get the rise of imperialism, by the 1820s, 1830s, the British were already economically imperialist. They very quickly imperialized the United States, used it for industrial production, and was by the time of World War One. A lot of British motor vehicles relied on American production to exist, as well as a lot of British armed equipment. And we see this even more with World War II, where the British relied heavily on American tanks and aircraft. Americans are ignorant about the difference between fascism and communism. That's not just an American thing. Welcome to liberalism.
That's thanks to
that's an international liberal problem. That is.
But that's intentional, though.
That's something that they've been doing for the last 70 years as a decisive propaganda campaign that come from the Social Democrats post-war. And
go on
the liberals
average,
took the cake with that one afterwards.
Yeah, go on an average, just an average, liberal or whatever, apolitical. When I say apolitical, liberal. Twitch, game player or something like that. Somebody who streams games. Like, go into the comments sections. If you actually talk with them, and I've done this just a few times, you just mention communism or anything like that, or anti-fascism. I brought that up. Twitter, banning anti-fascists. And they'll literally say, like 2 comments in a row said, The anti-fascists are more fascist than the quote fascists they're trying to suppress.
That literally makes no sense.
Literally, that's what they said twice. The anti-fascists are the real fascists. It's like,
That's
this is
just
the
that.
kind. This is
Well,
the
that's
kind
just
of
willful ignorance on that one. The educated fascists don't say that nonsense.
yeah, and it's
Like Donald Trump doesn't do that, and I know a lot of people like to say, "Oh, Donald Trump's an idiot." No, I'm sick and tired of everyone thinking all of our enemies are fucking buffoonish. That's bullshit. There's no way Trump isn't fucking smart in some way. He would not be able to do what he does if he was stupid.
The guy is politically educated enough that he's able to use Maoism as a buzzword, even if he doesn't understand what it is. He like, why would he delve to that? Like, even if he was going to choose any group to really label it, it'd be Marxist Leninists. You know, like parroting Reagan. You would think of it that way. He's just parroting Reagan because Reagan did have a very sophisticated political education. But no, Trump at least understands something to some degree, and so do a lot of the chums in the Republicans. A thing to note with fascists, like ideologues, fascism works on this sheep and shepherd method. They see like that the big boys have to fucking herd all the little boys. Um, uh, Fucking take with that metaphor what you will, given the fascist history of weird pedophilic practices too. But the what's it? Um, and so like the big chunguses in this situation, they're all fucking what's it? They're all typically quite well educated when it comes to the enemy. I mean, Adolf Hitler, for example, you'll hear people say this about Adolf Hitler. Oh, he was a complete moron. The guy had studied Marxism when he was in the SDP. The guy was also an educated tactician, and if anyone's ever studied that weirdo, you'll know that every time he went and sat with any of the people in the NSDAP, they were talking intellectual shit. There's loads of accounts of Germans talking about this. Like Hitler would just start going on rants about history and sociology and shit like that. Um,
yeah, he believed everything he
Trump isn't
said.
Trump isn't Trump isn't that sharp. Like nowhere near. But he's certainly not as sharp as at least pre-dementia Reagan. But he's sharper than a lot of people on both the Dems and the Republicans in many ways when it comes to understanding at least certain concepts and ideas. He's certainly well read on his American history. He's a very big fan of Andrew Jackson. He used to be a hardcore Democrat supporter, and he comes from a family of very evil, well, I shouldn't use moralism, but very twisted, meticulous bourgeoisie. His father was one of the most brutal billionaires to ever fucking be involved in the housing and supermarket market. Actually, the Daddy Trump was the one who opened one of the first ever supermarkets in the world. Well, his workers did, but you know what I mean.
Well, Trump's
Yeah,
biggest strength is the fact that he utilizes the fact that people underestimate him. A lot of them always have, and that's why he's been able to gather support. And if he wins the nomination, which it's looking like he will, though it's too early to say, I don't see Biden even winning against Trump without rigging the election.
I don't know. It was way too close last time. Like Biden won last time, and by a chunk, not a massive one, but a chunk nonetheless. It would still be close. There's a chance
I
Trump will
mean,
win.
I
But you
mean
got to
that's
understand why Biden's so electable is Uncle Joe, stability. He's a more comfortable person for people to hear and listen to speak because he has the old guy like your granddad kind of fucking feel with the way he's propagated. Because that's what they purposely did with the propaganda for him this time, and that's what they've been doing since the end of the Obama period. That's actually why a lot of people, including supposedly really left wing people, keyword supposedly, wanted Biden to run for president after Barack had gone in the initial Trump race, and so there's a good chance Biden will win again. To what avail? Like so much for stopping trans genocide. Like at the end of the day, like you would want Biden to win because at least with Biden, people can organize and protest. As Stalin says, moderate fascists at least allow us to exist. Trump does not. Trump's already threatened to deport people for being Marxists. And don't think that's just some empty threat. Go look up what they did to Marxists during the fucking, what's the era? McCarthyite era. You were treated to either a nice time in a prison, would be left to be out there to be spied on, to open up ways of people, or if you were not so long being in America, you would be on the next boat out of America. Now, you've been in there for 20 years. They would not hesitate to ship you to any country they could. And so, it's not an empty threat. Probably on the scale he's threatening it is, but it's not an empty threat. It's red baiting, and it's trying to put up, justification for McCarthyite policies. The fact that anyone said that the McCarthyism was going to come from the Democrats are morons. Democrats are trying to play a game of moderatism. And so they're not going to play that game because that shoots them in their own foot. And as much as the Democrats like to shoot themselves in their own foot, Hillary, they're playing it safer since Trump now. I mean, what's it? If it wasn't for Joe Manchin, they would have had one of the most progressive Democrat bills to have been put through in the last, like, 80 years, with the Build Back Better bill. The only problem was it got completely gutted. Not just because of Manchin. It was a lot more than just that. But Manchin was one of the key people that got that gutted. Because of silly filibuster. You know, you should cancel the filibuster. But they won't because as much as these two groups are competing with each other, they're tied to the hip. But if you get Trump in, transgenocide goes up like that, like a prairie fire. Biden doesn't stop it from happening, but it doesn't accelerate as much as it is. What needs to then be done is protest, organize. Because, like, a lot of people will do this duopoly shit of, like, either going one way, where they want to get Biden in because Biden's going to save us transes. Or the other way, where it's, it doesn't matter if Trump gets in because Biden isn't stopping shit anyway. And it's like, who do you think's going to cause more problem for the Jews? The liberals or the Nazis? Just to really boil it down to the most common denominator. Because that's what we need to avoid. We need to avoid people thinking that just letting Trump waltz his way into politics is going to be no different at all to if Biden's there. That would be imbecilic.
I agree. As much as I hate to say this, I agree. I don't want either one of them to win, but I'd rather have Biden over Trump.
We can't have the Republicans returning to power because we need to be able to protest and people need to actually do it, and we need to be able to arm, and that needs to go through loopholes. If anyone's going to start telling trans people and black people to arm, do not tell them to do it through the fucking official means if they're in a state that has a registrar, because you're just signing people up for a death sentence. Oh, go put your list on a whole list of names that, you know, puts a target on your back. Like, because they're going to come for the guns eventually, and they'll do that under the Republicans. It was under the Nazis that they went for the guns of Jews, Roma, and other oppressed groups in Germany. It'll be the same under the Republicans. They'll come and take certain people's guns. They've already been trying to push it. That's why they fucking tried to push that whole, like, do trans people need to be disarmed? Are they mass shooters or something? Because, A trans man caused a mass shooting. Oh, and someone whom literally later admitted to lying, lied about being non-binary in a shooting as well. And I called it that it was
Wow.
gonna be that white boy bullshit of, oh no, I'm in trouble. I'm gonna try and claim I'm non-binary. It's like those people that claim they're autistic the moment that shit hits the fan. And I mean, like, that's an actual thing that happens, not when people are accused of claiming it. I mean, like, there are actual piece of shit bigots that try and hide behind it because they actually believe the shit where they say that, like, it's like an all-encompassing card to get away with things. And I think that's why the guy ended up admitting that it was false, because it didn't get him anywhere, and he doesn't want to be recognized as a non-binary person. He's a transphobe.
Socialism done left
Oh
tried to hide
God.
behind the autism card after it came out that he was racist. No, his girlfriend was the one saying that. Oh no, he's not racist. He's just autistic. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ.
I mean, it wouldn't, like, for all we know, that guy could be, but the card doesn't get you out of anything. It's just like being autistic doesn't make you racist.
Yeah.
It'd be like me
Yeah.
going and just dropping like the end slur and then just going, oh, sorry, I have really bad back problems. To be honest, I'm surprised I'm shooting off so many fire lines because I've been drinking today. I have not long come back from Iron Maiden.
I didn't even notice you drank today.
I'd say I've had like 2 pints around around 4 5 p.m. I'm so used to using 24-hour time. When I start putting it into Yankee time, I'm just like, brain slow. So you'll start seeing that I have drunk. And then I drank 10% Scout when I got back to my old man's about midnight, half 11, midnight. Yeah, I went to see Iron Maiden in Birmingham. I say it like that, it sounds like the wrong kind of Birmingham. This Birmingham's not posh and fancy like Birmingham, Alabama. This is, I mean, it tries to think it's the London of the Midlands, but it's still a shithole.
Did I miss Margaret Thatcher's death anniversary or something? I know.
Yeah, that's already been that.
Fuck.
That's been a while now.
It was a
Yeah,
year.
it's been like a month or two now, I think.
Damn it! It's a yearly tradition for me to listen to the.
Ding dong, the wicked bitch is dead.
No, the techno.
I hope the
No, the
IRA should have killed the bitch 72 years ago.
The techno mix of, of the first song Wizard of Oz. It's like I make it a tradition every year to listen to it on their Death Day.
I actually gave you the title, Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead.
No, it's funny as hell because it's a techno remix of that song. It's amazing.
Nothing will beat my man doing the I shoved the pencil up my ass. Ding dong, the wicked bitch is dead. The IRA should have killed the bitch 72 years ago.
What's funny is an actress, I forgot what series she was playing Margaret Thatcher in, but or it's a movie. One of the common complaints about her is the only way they were able to play Margaret Thatcher properly is to basically play her as a psychopath, because it's very difficult to play her in any other way.
Oh, what's it? Psychopath wouldn't be the right word. A psychopath isn't someone who can calculate. Like, everyone uses that term wrong. Psychopaths cannot calculate ahead of themselves.
Well,
Like, they only work in the moment, but they have, like, complete dysfunctional emotional systems. What Margaret Thatcher would come under is narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder. That emotional disconnect, and she is a bit fucking insane in the membrane. Well, narcissism isn't exactly like, it's more complicated, but like narcissistic personality disorder. And so like, she's calculated. She's thought herself out there. She wasn't just off the tip of the hit. And this is very common for bourgeois people. NPD is really common in the upper class, and it's actually shown that capitalists that suffer with narcissistic personalities are actually like more profitable capitalists and succeed more in the market. They're more competitive and more capable of actually turning large leaps in profiteering and in profit gouging.
I'm just gonna say that Margaret Thatcher was probably a clone of Reagan, so that's why she's Reagan in drag.
Pretty sure she's fucking older than Reagan, isn't she? No, she's younger actually. Yeah, only by like 10 years though.
Who knows? Maybe a time traveler took DNA from Reagan and cloned him in the future.
No, what's it? It's just the same person. So,
Fucking okay. That random shit aside, because we got way off topic.
when is anyone gonna do the transvestigations on Margaret Thatcher? I'm waiting for it. We get Keanu Reeves, but no Margaret Thatcher. Come on, where's the Angloid representation here?
Karl Marx.
We'd have to dig up the grave though. Although sometimes when you dig up graves of like famous people, you get weird results. Like that time they dug up Himmler's grave, Heinrich Himmler, and they found that he had no teeth left. It was like, wait, what? He was buried with no teeth? That's interesting. It's almost like
No,
they got
someone
rid of
probably
his
stole his teeth.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I
Karl
imagine he
Marx.
had a lot of gold teeth. Because when they went fucking what's it? Wouldn't surprise me.
I know this
Or at
is
least
not an
male
original
teeth.
joke, but Karl Marx is probably Santa Claus.
Possibility. The French
That-
at least take to the streets when their government is doing wrong. Hey, we did during Thatcher. Fuck off with that. Like, what's it? There's a reason why British people are afraid to take to the streets. Did you see the way that they stomped them out in the 70s and the 80s? They ran over people with horses. I hope you know the death you are getting from being stomped on by a horse with fucking like a police horse with the proper heavy hooves on. You are dead, and not quickly either, unless they stomp straight on your head. You got a long way down from there, buddy.
And here in
That's one of the reasons why
America,
everyone's so terrified here. Like, we may look like we got this really, really softy, ooby police. As soon as you start causing a ruckus, they'll beat you near black and blue. And I mean, we had our own thing with Black Lives Matter. A lot of the things that were getting put out there to people was the information on the fact that we have a similar problem with strangulation here, of pinning black people down on their back in a way that suffocates them to death, and other forms of strangulation that are used as the most common method of killing black people when the police get their hands on them. That and just beating the shit out of people. Seriously, you need to find clips of it today where like police officers just go levering into someone fist for fist, like over and over. They don't even need their batons to be intimidating. They'll come at you bare knuckle, and they're not meant to bare knuckle you. They're meant to use their fucking funny little sticks. They ain't meant to bare knuckle ya. And I've watched like a geezer just like pile driving someone with his fist into the back of someone's skull. It's in a few videos like that.
Hey, what's up? Haven't seen you in a while.
it's terrifying in some of these countries. Like here in America, they just straight up just shoot you half the time. Like they don't even just beat the shit out of you. They'll just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna fucking kill you.
It's shoot
If you're
first,
black.
ask questions later. Fucking assholes. Like, sorry, people, if you hear a loud noise, it's because fucking dipshits are lighting fireworks.
Fireworks are lighting dipshits. Depends on your luck.
So in New Jersey, we would always go to the shore to watch the fireworks get lit, even though technically speaking, fireworks were illegal in New Jersey. And my father always said that whenever the police would take somebody's fireworks, they would always probably just shoot them off like a few seconds away on the block or something.
That's the same way as how the police confiscate people's drugs and then they sell them back on the market. I mean, you got a huck, but you got a huck.
But
These
guys,
are the biggest hucksters around.
we're supposed to be as communists. So celebrate 4th of July. Didn't you know? Spanky has told me so.
What? But why? Like they never give a reason. Like why?
Uh, I made it up. I'm just
No, no, this sounds like something he absolutely would have said. So like that comes to the point of question. Why?
I don't
Because it
know.
was a because it was a liberal bourgeois national quote revolution end quote, I guess.
The American Revolution
Eighteen
was a
standards.
revolution against the British, against global capitalists. That's probably what he would say.
No, he would have said it's a revolution against feudalism, which to a degree is not entirely false because it was a revolution against feudal order in a sense, like monarchy. But that was only a part of it and not the main reason why it happened. I mean, there were certainly people involved that were doing it for that reason. Um, most of the people involved in the American Revolution were slavers, like the actual leadership. And what's it? If you're gonna crease around with a rapper, you please make yourself coffee.
All right.
I said,
You were
if you're gonna
saying?
rustle, can you mute yourself?
I'm gonna do that.
It's not you. Okay. Um. Okay, where was I?
All right.
Yeah.
Continue.
Oh, it is you actually.
All right. Continue. I was done. I'm done.
Ah. Um. I need a long stick to smack yous with. You know you can get 100,000 mile long sticks, but what's it? Yeah, the American Revolution was a slavers' revolt against Britain's want to end slavery. The primary purpose was not the oh we want liberalism because they very much were in the ballpark of doing um they were very much in the ballpark of doing monarchy themselves, and they themselves were running an agrarian system. So this whole like agrarian feudalism of Britain is just bullshit. Like it's copy wobble that the bourgeoisie likes to pat themselves on the back for. Britain was going through massive capitalistic development at the time. The only legitimate reason that they had this independence was for freedom from the monarchy, and that was drowned in so many layers of like caveats and bullshit that there's a whole dissertation to be made on it. Because if you look at it through that range of, oh, they revolted to get rid of the monarchy, you could turn around and pat yourselves on the back and go, yeah, good idea. That was a good thing to do. But when you think of it on the basis of, oh, they really didn't like the fact that the monarchy did not allow them to go and genocide more natives. There was an actual decree that told them to stop warring with the natives and stay the fuck out of the land that was designated as theirs through the deal that the British had signed. That basically gave the Indians the plains, well, the natives the plains. Basically fucked them off into a place that was much harder to survive in. And what's it? The white Americans got the much easier to survive land, but white Americans weren't fine enough with that, so they had to go invade and massacre natives. Um, and then also they were kicking a stink up about slavery and the whole taxes crap. Oh, the feudal taxes were too much. The British raised the taxes in America because they were raising taxes like this, just common bourgeois shit. Welcome to the capitalist world. The Americans did kick a stink about the taxes, but it wasn't as big compared to everything else. Everything else was the more glaring issue. The British in like 1773 or 74 basically asked the Americans, like, well, they pushed for the end of slavery in America, and that really was what riled them up. The British in 1774 or 75 basically turned around and was like, oh, we're not gonna do those tax advances anymore. We'll undo them. And then basically turned around to America and was like, oh, and let it only be that the only thing we compete on in the world is that of liberty. When they asked them again, like they asked them about, like, ending slavery and the competition be of being the most liberal country around. Um, for the feudal, the supposed like feudal nature of Britain, they seem to be preaching a lot of liberalism. Um, yeah, the British were controlled by a monarchy, but that monarchy was not, like, its power structure was feudal, but it itself was not. It's what you could say is one of the earliest forms of neo-feudalism, or fascism, if you want to be funky about it. But fascism didn't exist until what's it, Gentile and Mussolini cooked it in the kitchen, so it's like proto-fascism, but nonetheless, first form of neo-feudalism, where the monarchy is very bourgeois. Like, the idea that the monarchy is some like non-bourgeois entity that's holding the bourgeoisie hostage is hilarious. The monarchy was one of the first institutions to turn bourgeois, if not the first institution to turn bourgeois. It was under the leadership of Henry VIII that some of the first ever, if not the first ever private, yeah, no, yeah, the first ever private property based, like, factory sort of production. They weren't really factories, but like private property based production for cannons and ships. That came from Henry VIII's period. That's the 1500s. The British were very well on their way with capitalism at this time. They weren't some like, oh, we're a semi-feudal country. The Peasants' War had already been going on in the while. There was a thing called the Peasant Wars, and that's when the Brits were slowly like kicking the peasants off their land and basically trying to force them into being either proletarians or petty bourgeois slash bourgeois, depending on which way they're going. Lower peasants, middle peasants, upper peasants, respectively. But yeah, we were already deep into the peasant wars. That's actually one of the things the Americans benefited off, because the Americans were then like, "Oh, come over here, peasants. We'll give you plots of land for you to exist on." Um, Especially with the Manifest Destiny crap.
Let's see. Did something happen?
No, nothing. I was at the end of what I said.
Oh. And God forbid it if you bring up Jay Sakai. I'm sorry.
I mean, Sakai is a kooky weirdo. I wouldn't jump to backing him so much. Like, he has some points to be said, but he also says some weird shit at the same time.
Like, what's your criticism of Sakai? Just curious.
I don't want to get diving into a long, dreary motion, because a lot of it involves a lot of information that we just don't have, like concerns. But Sakai is like, the guy has some statements that are good, and then a load of statements that are just awful. I think a lot of people love what Sakai does, in the sense that, like, there's the myth of the white proletariat and like the term settlers, and that just stings white people a lot because they can't handle it. Even though anyone who's ever even promoted that book will also admit that, like, it's not that they're a myth, it's that they hold a petty bourgeois character similar to that of the labor aristocracy. I hate to break it to people, but labor aristocrats are also still proletarian. It's just that the main mass of the proletariat in America comes from black people, from slavery. White people in the working class have had a certain semblance of petty bourgeois class culture and position because of their relationship to black people. That is apt stuff. Not really getting into gripes of that. It's some of the fucking ways he goes about things, and some of the dodgy, well, more so lack thereof character that we have to Jay Sakai. The guy's a bit of a nothing burger, and he's kind of a kooky dude. As like I say, he says some apt stuff sometimes, but there are many people elsewhere that say these stuff in greater detail and are actually black. So they understand the struggle a lot better than Jay Sakai does. So I don't know, to be honest. I'm
I
not a
think
big
Jason
fan of
Kai's
him.
Settlers should be read as a companion piece to other books. It should not be read by
I
itself.
I I don't think anyone should read it until they've read something else. Understand the settler situation and then read it, because then what's right and what's wrong will stand out a little more. You read it as your first introduction to settler colonialism in America, and you'll get a lot of good information, because there is a lot of good information in there, and you'll get a lot of huckster shit in there as well. Like, I'm careful with Sakai. Like, there's a lot of good shit that can be taken from Sakai, but there's a lot of stuff that's just iffy. He's a kooky dude, um, and has some sus background as well.
Well, but of course, I got a lot of shit from these revisionists because I simply just talk about the book, even though I was critical of it. Like just having a conversation about the Jay Sakai's book Settlers, whether it's just to have a conversation, is forbidden for some reason amongst these chauvinists.
Yeah, because discussing these things is just too much for them, and they don't like being called settlers. It really gets with their white sensibilities. They don't like. I mean, these people can't even handle it being pointed out that workers in the first world hold a petty bourgeois like consciousness in relation to the rest of the world. Or like, the fact that they can look out there, see all of this individualism that like permeates within the working class in the first world, and not turn around and see it, like it shows a semblance of ignorance on this part. And the majority of people you're engaging with in this part will be petty bourgeois white people in general anyway, and they just hold such a privileged class position they're unwilling to accept it. And even many in the working class are unwilling to accept it because their relationship that they hold over black people, is one of privilege, and so they're unwilling to accept that privilege on the process, on the accountability that they could lose that privilege, and do everything they can to protect it.
Well, these are the same kind of people that basically call France Fanon a liberal. When it's like, what?
Frantz Fanon was a fascist. What?
No, France Fanon. No,
Yeah, the fucking African. No, not Frantz Fanon. Sorry, I'm thinking of fucking someone else. Sorry, Frantz Fanon was a Marxist.
you've heard of
Who was
Louis
the fucking?
Farrakhan.
No, no, no. I'm on about the geezer from the turn of the 20th century.
Oh,
The guy who come up with Pan Africanism.
oh.
Francis Garvey.
Yeah, that's it. Francis Garvey. They all got similar names. Like, it's always Francis.
Well, the book is Wretched of the Earth.
Yeah, no. Frantz Fanon's a Marxist. I know who Frantz Fanon is. It's just I heard Francis Garvey in my head. But yeah, Francis Garvey was a fascist. Frantz Fanon was a Marxist.
Well,
I thought they were calling Francis fucking sorry, Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey, not Francis. What the fuck are you saying?
It's
Marcus
just so
Garvey, not
it's
Francis.
just so funny that they call him a liberal. It's like, wait, what? Because he actually.
I thought they were calling Marcus Garvey a liberal, which that would be sus. Like,
It's like they call Gerald Home a CIA asset. God forbid he talks about a black man. Talks about real American history from a black perspective.
so like Frantz Fanon, he was the Marxist that was going into the home of white people, Britain, the headquarters of white people. That's the joke. Sorry, going into the headquarters of white people and actually criticizing capitalism at its core in the center of the British Empire. We're talking of turning point of the 20th century here. And yeah, Frantz Fanon was very vocal about his Marxism, very vocal about his anti-capitalism. To call Frantz Fanon a a liberal or anything otherwise than a Marxist is purposeful disinformation. Still
When
can't
we
believe I got their names mixed up. Holy shit.
when we talk to these revisionists long enough, you will realize
Right.
they always do it to black writers, whether Marxists or historians.
Yeah, what's it?
No, I'm not saying that all these there aren't some there isn't shit libs who I'm talking about who belong to that diaspora that doesn't write nonsense or stuff from a lib perspective. I'm not saying they're not going to disregard that. I think I do have one of those
they
books
will,
written
they,
by a liberal called I think it's called Stamped from the Beginning. I haven't read it yet, but it's written by a liberal.
but,
Um,
I mean, what's it with Franz Fanon as well? His studies on the Algerian struggle were, that's where Franz Fanon's studies on the Algerian struggle is where a lot of the inspiration for Battle of the Algiers came from. His notes in his diary on the Algerian struggle. And it was his analysis of this struggle and many other struggle was where Fanon came up with his support for the lumpen proletariat, or what he called the wretched of the earth.
I mean, he's one of the most influential writers for the African diaspora, and it's
I can't believe I can't believe I got him confused with Garvey when I know so much about Fanon. It's really pissed me off. Don't don't do alcohol, people.
it's okay. You're only human, Carl.
I fucking what's it? Apparently I'm some like fucking creature according to the right. Gonna come and porn addle you or whatever the fuck.
You don't know if
It's my porn addled brain. I can only think of fucking my mind into the dirt and nothing else.
I wonder how my hate watchers are going to react this year to me dunking on their favorite holiday, 4th of July.
Oh well, that's not their favorite holiday. It'll be Thanksgiving because that's when they're totally showing how we're always so nice to the natives. How can you say that we're horrible to them? Look, we celebrate when they gave us their country, supposedly. Citation needed.
It it's not a 4th of July. I mean, it's not a holiday, but one of my reactionary coworkers, whenever 9/11, the day of 9/11 comes up, he will over the mic he'll do a page on the speakers and do "Remember the Dead," and it'll just be like the most
Firemen and no one
awkward
else.
shit ever. It's just
Remember the
like,
janitors and the firemen and the civilians and no one else.
and maybe a few homeless people who got killed.
You think
There might have
homeless
been some-
people are allowed anywhere near the World Trade Center?
I don't know. It was pretty big, the debris. So
Yeah,
maybe
to
they
be
got
fair,
there.
it was a pretty big crash, but what's it? And to be fair, if I was on the streets, I'd be watching everything unfold. I wouldn't want to run away. I'd be like, yo, front row seats. Like, watch America burn.
There was
Honestly,
9/11, America's chickens coming home to roost.
I've been reluctant to
I
do
think those planes flew way too far of a distance for them to be chickens. They're more like sparrows or something, or like or a hawk.
You know,
America's eagles coming home to rest. There we go. They
I've
can
been
fly long
reluctant.
distance.
I've been
Also,
reluctant to do this, but if I'm not working, I want to do a fucking 9/11 stream. I'm not joking.
also 9/11 was an inside job, and also Pearl Harbor.
Well, I
was
mean,
about beforehand, and an inside.
I mean, what's it? It being an inside job is not so much true, but them setting them up to do it is because the idea that it's an inside job is that those towers fell because they set them up for it, which is not exactly true. They did set them up to get hit, but like basically the inside job quote comes from the idea that they had like set the towers to blow and that they were ready to just blow the whole shit up, and then they set up the planes in. Like, that's where a lot of the inside job stuff comes from. Because those conspiracies have been coming about since because it's all like jet fuel couldn't melt steel beams, so it had to be an inside job. That's where that phrasing comes from.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, no, the jet, like, my dad works with steel all the time. I mean, not only is it like steel beams. Okay, what kind of steel beams are we talking about already to get in the beginning of it? Secondly, it doesn't need to be hot enough to melt it. Kerosene burns at well more than a hot enough temperature to send steel cherry red, and that's all you need. As soon as it's losing its tension and it gets more elastic, it's gonna cause a break. It's gonna twist up and melt away. But yeah, the Americans set them up. Like, they armed them, they prepared them, they knew they were gonna do it, and they purposefully ignored it. If you want to call that an inside job, sure. But I'm just careful about that phrasing because so many fucking, like, conspiracy theorists have thrown that shit around, and I just don't care for it. America set up 9/11 is just the way I put it.
Yeah, I don't like getting into the conspiracy things either too much anymore.
Yeah.
There are still a lot of questions, and these are for discussions that we should have, I think.
The JFK,
oh, yeah.
The anthrax thing, which has been completely, what's the word, memory hold out of existence.
The JFK conspiracy theory is not a conspiracy theory. There's way too much evidence to support
A lot of the information around it is the amount of different people have said have assassinated them, with the most common one being the Soviets, is a lot of it's huckster bullshit. And it's the same with like 9/11. Like with 9/11, there's like so many things that definitely did happen. Like the U.S., like the CIA knew that there were like they gave like shit to these terrorists, thinking it would get them caught. Well, at least that's their reasoning that they give. And then all of a sudden, those trained terrorist like pilots that they had sent, like because I think it was like 2 of them or something like that. It's somewhere around 2 of them were sent to go get involved with Bin Laden to catch him out, and ended up being 2 of his greatest assets for training basically the 3 people that were going to do the flights.
Well, what I mean by JFK, I don't believe in what I believe is how there's no way it could have been one shooter, because that's just if you look at the footage where JFK was shot, it looked like he was getting shot in multiple.
No, that's a ricochet. That's a ricochet. That's more than possible. Bullets don't blast straight through bone. Like, I mean, they can, but a lot of very thick bone, like let's say the thickest bone in your body, your what's it, the one on your leg or your spine, which is also a very thick bone, can ricochet a bullet. I mean, it's possible that he was shot multiple angles. That wouldn't surprise me. Make sure he's dead. But a ricochet is also possible, so we can't actually say 100% definitely he was shot from multiple angles. It's just quite possible, and I would say I'm more on the side of believing he was, but I don't know. Like, they keep covering up the autopsy, so I can't tell you. I need to know the autopsy, because that's how you could tell whether it was a ricochet or not. Because if he was shot from 2 angles, there would be an entry point on the other side of his body. Might be one of the reasons why they won't let us see it.
Not to mention, it's the circumstances after his death, which also causes some questions, because, like, the supposed shooter was, like, if he actually did it, why would you just kill him and silence him unless he knew more? And they wanted.
It was just because of shit he wanted to do with the economy and some of his positions. That's why they shot him.
I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, no, it wasn't because JFK knew somewhat audacious. Like, all presidents know these things. Presidents have, like, full clearance. They can see everything.
I'm talking about JFK. I'm talking about the Oswald.
Oswald was fucking nabbed after for multiple different reasons. One of them being he was accused of being a Soviet spy. Other reasons was he was passed off on. But Oswald was likely involved in the shooting. It wouldn't surprise me. He was a Navy SEAL and a CIA agent. But Oswald being innocent or not doesn't change the fact that Jack Ruby was also involved in this. Now, whether they were both shooters that were there, or whether one of them was there and Ruby was orchestrating, because Ruby was definitely the orchestrator out of the two. That's hard to be getting. And whether like Oswald was actually a Soviet agent or whether that was just justifiable cover up to have him fucking dealt with, we'll never know.
But there's other things too, like the witnesses that were actually there when Kennedy were assassinated. A good chunk of them died in mysterious circumstances.
Oh yeah, they'd have been kicked off of buildings.
So that's why I'm very suspicious. Why I think there's that I don't believe completely it's a conspiracy theory because there's just
Do you
too
know
much
what?
inconsistencies.
It's not about it being an conspiracy theory. There are loads of conspiracy theories. That's the problem. Like, when you're dealing with something like this, there are 70 different conspiracy theories explaining all sorts of different crazy shit. And some of them have, like, little finkles. That's a term for, like, tiny bits of poo. Little finkles of truth in them. What's it? And, the in this situation, there's so many convoluted things you got to look into that you can't just go, I don't believe it's not a conspiracy theory because it's like, or I don't believe it's a conspiracy theory because like it's too pasted out. It's like, way I look at it, I believe a lot of the shit that went down with JFK and a lot of the fucked up stuff about it. But I understand that so much of it is shrouded in conspiracy theory. I can only know so much, and so my range of purview is limited. Actually, much more limited than 9/11. We have so much information about 9/11. It's kind of like hilarious. Something hasn't been like pushed in like protest about something actually being done about this. Um, uh, uh, Fucking Americans. Someone tries to fucking stop like toddlers from getting a hold of AR-15s, and there'll be protests all around the streets. Literally 2 planes get crashed into the fucking New York. You invade half of the fucking Middle East, and still there's been no mass protests to do anything. The only protest that have ever really been done about the 9/11 was the mistreatment of like surviving fire personnel and the families of dead firemen um, whom had like basically not been properly compensated, and that's all there's been. That's all the protest there's been about 9/11, other than like the odd kooky conspiracy theorists that will literally tell you that the Jews did it, whether it's the Jewish space lasers conspiracy or the actual like most common conspiracy, which is that the Jews orchestrated it. And then you have like there's even who's that guy that Morpin really likes from the 80s, Star Wars guy?
LaRouche.
LaRouche. There's even a LaRouche conspiracy that it's it's the monarchy, which is just him saying the Jews for extra
Oh
steps.
God.
Yeah, like a lot of the right wing communists, as Yankee calls them, believes the monarchy had an involvement in 9/11. That's where those memes come from. Like the memes taking the piss out of it being the monarchy doing it. Like there are Americans who believe this.
You want to know the biggest bullshit conspiracy theory of them all? The moon landing.
That's easy to take the piss out of.
It is.
The idea that didn't happen is false.
Oh, okay, let's entertain the idea just for a second. First off, I got one question. I got some questions. One, why would you fake the moon landing? Two, if you were going to fake the moon landing, why would you do it in the first place? Well,
people saying like, why would the flag flutter? Because there's no wind. Wind is not the only thing that causes a flag to float. Anyone knows how low gravity is on the fucking moon, and the fact it was put up a certain way means that it's gonna keep trailing that way because it's not being pulled down. Like,
if it was fake, let's just give it the benefit of the doubt for a second. Wouldn't the Soviets or anybody have found out already? Wouldn't they be able to find it right away because of telescopes?
And actually, the Soviets were quite enamored by the moon landing. It hit hard, as much as the Soviets done way more when it comes to achievements of space. The Soviets were absolutely bombarding. That's why the Soviets themselves then pushed to have their own moon mission, which failed. Don't look up the Soviet moon mission; you'll get depressed.
Well, I'm just saying this because these fake moon landing conspiracy theories, they never ask the basic questions: why would they do it? What's the motivation to do it?
The only
Or
reason that you could think of is to save money, but then why did they launch the rocket? Oh, to keep face. But if they were doing it to save money, why would you launch the rocket if you were trying to save the money,
now,
regardless of keeping phase?
And
now
even if you faked it, wouldn't we have the technology by now to actually do it?
okay, and let's be real here. If if the moon landing was fake, there'd be way too many fucking witnesses to the supposed moon landing that was fake. Let's say,
Also, the moon landing, we've been there more than once. That's the other funny thing about it.
like, you couldn't fucking silence that many fucking witnesses. Something would come out eventually, even if you murdered most of them. There's
We've
just
been
no,
there more than once. The Chinese have been there before. The Russians have been there before. Like, it's, oh my god. Like,
it's like even
there has been so many fucking moon landings since the 60s. Like, I mean, not drastically many, but many compared to the, like, literal, like, just going to space in general and being on an extraterrestrial. Well, actually, the moon technically isn't extraterrestrial. It's literally just, like, Earth, but in space. Uh, well, more complicated than that. It's basically, like, parts of the different like planetoids that had collapsed, and it's like basically a chunk of planetoid that like didn't like fully mash into the Earth like the rest of them, and so it stayed as an orbiting piece of planetoid. Well, that's one of the theories. Another one is it's like a completely other random planetoid that got stuck within our gravitational pull. I don't know which one I subscribe to. Take your pick. But it's a planetoid. Like and we've been there many a times, all things considered. I don't think they were faking it. And the whole
eh,
shadows thing makes no sense. Literally half the moon is a cast shadow. Like their argument just falls on its face the moment you even scratch your head to use your brain.
and let's assume and let's just say by some miracle, it's found out the moon landing was fake. Do you think the majority of the Earth's population would give a shit when they had more important things to be concerned about,
Uh,
especially Americans?
What's it? If the technology nowadays is being used for the military sub monkey, that would still make it technological advancement. It's just capitalism doing what capitalism does. We are absolutely advanced in our technologies nowadays. Heck, the fact that I have the power of a PC on my phone is an example of that. And the military has always been one of the biggest leaders in technological advancement. Where do you think the internet came from? Came from, well, not directly, but it basically came from the ideas of ArcNet, which was a military networking that connected the British and the Americans together and was used for experimenting on what eventually became the international web or the interwebs, which was created, or the World Wide Web, which was created in the UK, and that's why we put www at the start of stuff, World Wide Web.
Now that was a little random, going from one conspiracy theory to another. But then again, this
I
we
mean, it's the
talked
4th of
for.
July. What are we supposed to do but indulge in conspiracy theories? We're keeping with the theme,
You know
technically
what's
speaking.
funny? On Facebook today, I saw a Fourth of July meme that had stormtroopers when it said "Happy Fourth of July." It was a joke. Actually, they were actually poking. They're basically poking fun at the holiday.
I don't know.
Is
That
it?
sounds like
It,
something Americans would do.
No, they
It's
had
like,
is it?
stormtroopers and with the American flag.
no. I mean, like just like your average American patriot being like, ah, yes, I know what will show how much I love my country. My love for the Imperial Empire and Star Wars. That thing that's supposed to mimic the British, the Americans, and the Nazis. Yeah, we'll cram that in. So much for the 4th of July being an anti-British motion. Did they ever consider why all the Imperials were fucking English sounding motherfuckers? You ever considered that?
If
No.
if it was a Pat Sock account, I would be like, yeah, this is not a joke. These people.
Well, this person was making is a shit post account. They're a communist like account that has an Ewok as an avatar.
Still, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't even make it. That they just found the fucker on some right winger's fucking Facebook page. Was like, oh my god, perfect 4th of July meme. But that right winger was like serious, because there's a lot of them that will like do the Imperials were the actual good guys, and it's like, oh my god.
You know
Yeah.
what's really crazy? And I know I shouldn't be saying this. If there's this video I have on my community tab, which, okay, I know this is gonna sound ridiculous. If you were to watch it, you would think of the Michael Bay Transformers films in a different light. They seem more
I've seen it.
interesting. What?
I've seen it.
It's like the Autobots are fascists and the Decepticons are the lesser evil. I can get behind that.
I mean, they're both pretty bad. It's moderates versus the more extreme.
Yeah, but at least the Decepticons aren't doing racial stereotypes like the Autobots. Like it was like, I think Transformers 5 basically, whatever it intended or not, made it impossible to argue that the Autobots aren't fascist because they helped the rise and the Bayverse. By the way, for those of you who don't know, the rise of the European empires. So, in the Bayverse, you can thank the Autobots for Nazism.
It depends, like, on what era you're looking at, because a lot of it as well is baked in liberalism, and the fucking Decepticons themselves are fascists, so it's literally just a Spider-Man meme.
Well, it depends on the incarnation, though, because
in the Bay movies, they are fascists.
That's true. But so are the Autobots.
And to be honest, they're pretty much fascists in every incarnation, even the fucking Prime incarnation. The Decepticons are still fascists. Like, it's just a variation of how they express it is differently.
Well, the IDW comics is very interesting. At least the first continuity.
Oh yeah, IDW, that's a little different. Although what's it? Megatron has his big spur when he becomes an Autobot. Not so much while he's a Decepticon. While he's a Decepticon, he's still a rampageous fascist.
What's actually funny, when Megatron became an Autobot, Optimus, when he was actually going on a redemption arc, Optimus Prime was basically being an imperialist who basically made Earth part of the Autobot Empire or Cybertron Empire. I don't remember. I haven't read those comics.
Cybertronian Empire.
I'm interested in the comics. It's probably the most interesting Transformers has ever been. They do various things with the characters that haven't been done in any other version.
Yeah, the character development is amazing in the IDW.
Yeah,
and a lot of like Transformers like movie and TV media took a lot of inspiration from the IDW comics.
it's a shame that TMNT won't do that for the ID. I'm talking their newer incarnations for the IDW because that's my favorite version of the Turtles.
Oh, what's it? You're never gonna get proper good TMNT on this big screen anymore. They're always gonna dumb it down to the silly turtles that fucking eat pizza and shit on the floor kind of stuff. Like they're not gonna do proper good stuff anymore.
One of my favorite Shredders is actually the most interesting in the IDW universe because he's not necessarily evil. He's kind of morally gray. And he's the only Shredder that actually has gone through a redemption like arc, unlike other versions where Shredder is an evil warlord. I think that's the beauty about reimaginings in general. I think taking new characters in different directions, and that's why I'm not against reboots all the time. If something's new is being done with those characters.
Yeah, it depends on when you're rebooting. Depends on the time you're rebooting and on what you're rebooting.
No, there's some series that should never get rebooted. Star Wars being one of them.
Harry Potter.
Indiana Jones 5. Terrible.
I'm not gonna watch Indiana Jones 5.
What, you don't want to see
I'll watch it
Indy
for
at
free.
Beach? You don't want
Fucking
to watch
asshole.
somebody blew up Los Angeles.
Okay, I'll watch it for free purely just because Harrison Ford's in it, but I'll never pay for it. I'm not paying for a film that doesn't even incorporate the proper directors.
You know,
At least with the four films, they actually incorporated like all the same directors throughout it.
I'm not watching 5 because it doesn't have George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. Like, if you at least had those the original two people that were involved in the series from the start, I would be more interested. But I'm just not interested.
But you do have Kathleen Kennedy.
Okay, I know this is gonna piss some people off. What I'm about to say. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is the problem for most of what's going on in Disney Star Wars
Oh, what's it?
or
She is definitely
Lucasfilm as
part
a
of the
whole.
problem.
She's
Oh, she's
the
definitely part
fault.
of the problem.
She's basically a scapegoat that Lucasfilm, like,
No,
they can
no, no,
point
no,
to
no.
Kathleen Kennedy.
She has the power
No,
to
no one
turn around.
like Bob Iger's been responsible for many of the bad decisions that have been made.
Bob Iger is the Disney rep, though. She is the actual
And I can't
head.
believe I'm saying that.
She is the head CEO of Lucasfilm. She has as much power to tell him to
Oh
shove his
God,
head
don't
up his
tell me.
ass as he does the other way.
Oh fuck.
And so, like, she's just as much a problem.
Okay.
And what's it? Where does Kathleen Kennedy come from? She comes
Oh
from
great, my
corporate.
internet shit.
She comes from corporate,
Either my
and that's
internet
where she
shit
got friends
or
with Lucas. Genuinely, you
people
can't
in
even
my
hear me, so just
chat who are on the chat are fucking not here because I don't hear anything. Hello?
that's on your end.
I hear you.
Yeah, I hear you.
Testing. Testing.
Can anyone just someone say hi? Because I cannot. Oh fucking Christ!
We've
Hi.
been saying it.
The the internet has been fucking. I think has been fucking not working for me. I don't know if I've said anything for the past few minutes or seconds, or because I didn't hear anything. It's been
Unfortunately,
silent. Oh, not again. Fuck you, StreamYard. Fuck you, StreamYard. Seriously. Okay, you can hear me, but none of my guests are responding to anything I'm saying.
no, we
I
are.
can hear
You're
you.
just not able to hear us.
Oh, fuck. StreamYard sucks. I'm just going to say that.
You're like dick humor.
All right. Okay. I'm gonna. Okay. I'll be back. I'm just gonna leave and I'll be back.
So how's everybody doing today?
Ugh.
There's a lot of fireworks outside.
God damn it. The technical difficulties. I was getting to a good point too. Anyway.
Actually, like, the idea that Kathleen is a nothing burger is bullshit. She's literally the head of Lucasfilms. She sits at every single one of those tables and has the biggest voice out of anyone in Lucasfilms to push against shit. And she didn't because she was in on it all. She comes from corporate. That's how she became friends with Lucas in the 90s. She's one of Spielberg's corporate buddies. What's a corporate buddy? They ain't your friend. Lucas said that about it himself. He pointed out that Kathleen Kennedy had stabbed him in the back with the shit that she had done, along with Bob Iger. It was both of them. And so to try and like go, oh, it's all Iger or all Kennedy is both wrong. But to try and separate any of it out of it, like um there's a Star Wars breakdown video of it all that actually gets into a lot of this. Um,
I,
it's like called like Star Wars Apollocria or something like that. I can't remember the
well,
name,
I
but
wasn't.
like the
Well,
point is that like trying to liquidate Kennedy's involvement in this would be a nothing burger itself.
I'm not saying she isn't involved, but what I'm basically saying it just seems like Disney is just using her as the fall person.
No, she's literally the CEO of fucking Lucasfilms. She is someone who deserves to fall. So does fucking Iger. And
Oh, I
Iger will get
know.
his shit anyway because Iger's ruining film franchises that aren't even Lucasfilms. So, like, he's gonna get his shit. But, like, when it comes to Star Wars, she's the biggest voice to turn around and go, wait, this isn't Star Wars. She was the one who was the most involved out of her and Iger when it came to the Star Wars trilogy. She was right involved in it, had the most contact with the directors and stuff. And when
That's
they did
true.
have their big meetings, all of them were sat together. And also, let's not forget that there was originally still going to stick with the scriptwriter that Lucas had applied for it, that was going to write the story as Lucas had it, where Luke was training the character that eventually became Rey, Kira, in the first of the trilogy, not the second of the trilogy, and a whole lot of different things, like the Death Star ruins were in the first of the trilogy, not the last of the trilogy. There was no Emperor comeback because Lucas isn't a fucking moron. And what's it? He got fired because J.J. Abrams and his little buddy from fucking episode 5, whatever the fuck his name was, the guy who co-wrote The Force Awakens, purposefully got him fired because JJ is a scriptwriter and then you don't have to pay as much money out. But how they did it was they binned every single draft and that the writer that Lucas applied to was the same guy who helped Lucas write the prequels. They binned every single draft he wrote, and then they didn't turn around and go, "Oh, he was writing bad drafts." They turned around to Disney and said, "Oh, he's being inefficient and not getting enough work done," and got him sacked. And that was one of the biggest hits to the sequels, and that just everything escalated from there. Because I mean, like, what you offer Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy a cheaper way to do the sequels, and they're gonna do it. Lucas wanted them to release it on a slower period, and they already sped that up because they didn't like Lucas's time frame for it and thought, no, we should get it all done within 6 years. And they also, what's it? They also, what was else they did? Oh yeah, with what J.J. Abrams and all that did, they basically put themselves so close to the movie's release without a script that the way they had to do it is they had to get props ready, scenes ready before the script had even reached that point. And so a lot of the script writing for The Force Awakens was done like in the moment as sets had already been built and done because they were taking so long to write the script. Because turns out J.J. Abrams is a shit script writer. Who'd have thunk? And the what's it? Um, and they couldn't get the script done quick enough for all the props to be done. Before half the props were ready before they had even gotten a taint of the script done, like a taint. By the time half the script was done, all the props were done pretty much, bar a few.
Yeah, the sequels sucked ass. Like honestly,
I don't.
like,
I'm just gonna say this. I don't. The next movie that they're gonna do involving Ray, just what story is there to tell with this character? There is no story, really.
Well, there is one. It's just a bad one.
Well, I don't think there really is a story to tell with Ray
No, by the
because
definition of what a story is, there is one. Just a bad one. I'm being a coy little bitch.
well, the reason I say there's really no story is because where can you go with Ray's character that doesn't revolve around retreading storylines that have been done in the 1990s,
do
except
do something new.
worse.
They very much could do something new. Any character can have something new done for them. There's no such thing as a character's completely worn out. They couldn't have story made for them because I mean we saw this with the expanded universe. They made shit tons of story for characters that a lot of people would say, "Well, Luke was worn out. There couldn't have been more story for him." Episode 6 is the end of it all.
I think the difference between Luke and Rey is the way Luke's character arc, how it progressed. It left room for more stories, and interesting stories.
The point I'm saying is that any character can have extra story added to it. Whether it's good or not is questionable, and you know what? Get the right writer, and they could make a good story with them. They'd have to omit and ignore a lot of the sequel stuff. But like, there's definitely like a character that can be used. The problem is that while there is a story, the story that's being told is one that is a shit story. Like, by definition, it is a story, but it is going to be utter shite.
Well,
especially from what we've already seen from them.
Well, just so far, I've heard that she's going to train 2 students, a boy and a girl. It's like, and I can predict what's already going to happen. Like, one of them's going to fall to the dark side, and you're just basically just going to...
To be honest, it'll be this like, oh no, a cataclysm happens. They had to be separated. Turns out they're twins and like somehow related to the Skywalkers, even though the bloodline's dead.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just saying the very concept.
No, I'm just saying like they really would be that poor that they just dig up A New Hope again.
It's just like here's the thing, like Rey's. If you want, I feel like telling stories of Rey, like after Rise of Skywalker, not just skip 16 years and let the books and comics do the heavy lifting. I'm saying do a Clone Wars in that era after Rise, and then tell stories and start.
Yeah, I mean, like, show her actually become a Jedi Master. Like, or was that what Rise of Skywalker was? Is she now Master Rey?
I just don't buy it. That character being a Jedi Master, because it's like let's compare.
But did you not hear Ahsoka talked to her during this funky visions? So that must mean she is a Jedi Master now because Ahsoka spoke to her. And we know how important Ahsoka is.
Because I think one of the most important aspects of a Jedi, at least this is my interpretation, is humility. Rey has not learned humility at all. If you compare...
I mean, no, what's it? Because she's such a super character, sometimes she has shit tons of humility, sometimes she has no humility because the character's a blank slate. It's one of the reasons why I say there's so much they could do with her because there's so much that hasn't been done. Like, I don't know, maybe have her actually trained. They literally just crammed a video, like a scene of her training in The Rise of Skywalker because everyone complained about how she didn't even train properly when she was with Luke. She just spent the time criticizing him and then trying to beat up the old man with a stick. And then pulled a lightsaber on him while he had the stick. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
if you just compare
Is this
Luke,
how you treat your elders?
this is how, if you compare Luke in A New Hope to how he is in the Return of the Jedi, it's obvious, like, why I could still like Luke. You could Luke's character. You don't need. And I'm saying as a fan of the EU, you could probably jump 10 or 20 or 15 years with Luke and have him train on a new generation Jedi. Because I could buy it with Luke. Because you've actually seen Luke progress gradually. Years have actually passed on his journey. The entire original trilogy happens in the span of 4 years. The sequels, 1 fucking year. That's nowhere near enough time for any growth at all.
What's it also? Come on, another decapitated hand and biomechanical limb. Where is it? We got to keep that poetry up because that's another thing as well. Like the rhyming isn't there with the sequels. It doesn't rhyme like the others do. It has copying, but it doesn't have rhyming, and that's something that really, really fucking grinds my gears. Like, because one of the really things about the trilogies is that they're all drastically different. But rhyme, while this one is like a copy of the original trilogy almost completely, but like The Last Jedi incorporating some prequel features, but most of it's still original trilogy. Most of it's still, A New Hope, Empire Strikes
Yeah.
Back, and Return of the Jedi. And they just huckster shit. One of the things you can say is like the prequels rhyme with the original trilogy. They are not even close to being the same kind of film. Like they're both soap operas, if you want to put it that way, but like they're so drastically different. The way the storytelling's done, the way the filming is done. I know Lucas would have preferred to do the original trilogy like he did the prequels, but technology, blah blah blah. But even with the technology, the storytelling was just drastically different. The scale was massively different. The types of story that was being told was quite different, although they were very similar in the way that they rhyme with each other, but they were coming from different angles. Like the prodigal son, the whole hero story with Luke is kind of like twisted up with the prodigy himself being Anakin and the sort of like Messiah story around him, but the twisted Messiah story of how like he's not actually quite the Messiah the Jedi believe him to be because determinalism is for dinguses.
Yeah, they'd have to dramatically change things up if they were going to do a new
Well, it just
thing of Star Wars films. Like, they're going to do something that's really dramatic. Like, one idea that I would have that get me interested is if they turned Rey into, like, some kind of bodybuilder type physique. But I don't think a lot of the audience would. I don't think Disney would go with that because that would threaten gender norms. I think.
I got something better. How
Also,
about
she's just a really small frame lass. You can't expect like a really skinny lass like that to bodybuild for a film.
I got something better. I say fuck anything related to the sequel era. Just go 200 to 300 years into the future. So we can actually go into uncharted territory, tell actual new stories, have the era of the Skywalkers basically be a myth at this point. So we can actually make Star Wars feel fresh and new again. But that's too much to ask for Disney to do, to take such a chance.
How is it a myth? It happened in their lifetime. It's like the idea that the Jedi are a myth or Vader was a myth when the time they were older. People lived through that. I don't know. That weirded me out in the sequels.
Well, I'm just saying that doing it 300 years into the future as the next step would be far more interesting. We don't need to see Rey rebuild the Jedi. We already know it's going to happen. Let's just continue.
I mean, we wanted to see Luke rebuild the Jedi, but we didn't get to see that. Instead, we just got to find out they were dead. That's great.
Or if you read the external media of the canon, he barely did anything when it came to training Jedi.
Was he too busy fucking being a porn-addled, a porn-addled LGBTQ CIA?
He just did what the old Jedi did. He just trained a bunch of kids. That's what he did. He didn't
that is par for the course.
He didn't do what he did in Legends and actually trained, which all of his first students were adults. They weren't kids, they were adults in Legends. Which I think that's what he should have done to begin with, rather than do with the old Jedi Order. But again, they were looking for an excuse to make Luke into a failure without actually giving us something more interesting. I mean, modern Hollywood is more interested in tearing down legacy characters rather than actually trying to tell stories of introduce with new characters alongside the legacy ones.
They have nothing new to come up with. It's all this like fucking fascist propaganda coming out of Disney and shit. Which is why, like, I think people are reluctant sometimes on the left to criticize Kathleen Kennedy because a lot of these chuds on the right hate her because reasons, I guess. They saw a black character once, and that alone automatically justifies fucking them hating him. I guess.
Well, majority of these people are liberals. They're not really leftists.
Yeah.
And they're more interested in defending, like, objectively garbage movies. Okay, The Last Jedi is the best of the garbage. I'm just going to say that.
That's been my position of it. And oh my god, is it still a trash fire?
It's a trash fire that that has some good ideas, but it doesn't do any good when it's questionable what this movie's message truly is. Like Luke Skywalker is basically a neoliberal. Let's just say it how it is in The Last Jedi. And my Luke Skywalker is no fucking neoliberal.
I would have actually preferred seeing him dead than in the film.
It's like my Luke Skywalker supports slave rebellions. My Luke Skywalker um, he basically seceded from the freaking the New Republic. He actually moved away from the New Republic and had the Jedi be not connected to them in any way. They're a loose connection. They work with them when it's necessary. That's my Luke Skywalker. My Luke Skywalker that's an actual Jedi, not some neoliberal shill that's like, hey, the Jedi, they kind of suck. Then at the end of Rise at the Last Jedi, and I will not be the last Jedi. It's like, what? So you literally are just going to pass on the failures to your non-students, okay? Whatever you say. God, what the fuck? We haven't even talked about 4th of July in almost an hour. We've been talking about pop culture shit. Shit.
I mean, we could maybe talk about a little bit about what's going on in France at the moment.
Yes, we should we should get the conversation back. So, yeah, I didn't. Sorry, people. I did not intend for us to be talking about Star Wars for this long. Then again, when you're doing a stream for a long period of time, you're bound to fucking have a disorganized stream. So I don't know enough about the France situation, so I'll let you just talk about it.
Yeah, there was a young Arab, Algerian, a teenager who was shot by the police there and killed, and there's protests currently going on. And what gets me is that apparently the head of the communist, I don't know what his title is or their title is, but the head of the Communist Party there literally said we need to shut down social media because we want to get unrest. We want to stop the unrest in the country.
That's a fascist.
Yeah, it's completely useless party. Should be utterly shamed in public.
Social media is the reason why we even know about any of this stuff in the first place. Social media is the reason why we know about the police brutality that's going on in America. We would not know about this as much if it weren't for social media. So anyone that says that is sus, in my opinion, in my eyes. I'm sorry.
And why do we even need not to have unrest? Like, honestly, like we should be having riots like crazy. What's going on?
No justice, no peace.
But yeah, the French Communist Party is a dumpster fire. But then again, this is the same Communist Party that 1968. Let's talk about the 1930s. Jeez. It's been one stab in the back after the other.
Anyone that supports peace for peace sake it doesn't support peace. Because peace for who? Because the families of that teenager, what peace is there for them? They lost their child. No parent should have to bury their child. No parent should have to do that. Where's their peace? I know everyone knows what the correct answer is, but this is rhetorical. what is peace? Because what's peace for the oppressed is not peace for the oppressor. The oppressor's idea of peace is not having uprisings, it's not having unrest, it's not having their lives inconvenienced. Those who truly support peace support justice above anything else, because without justice, there can be no peace.
And we don't want peace under capitalism, regardless. Oh, I mean, under specific circumstances, we want support whatever uprising against the system. We want protests and stuff like that. We don't want wars that kill the proletariat.
Thing is, what is peace and what is freedom? Because I don't think they're interchangeable. You can't have one without the other. But what is peace for one group is not peace for the other group. It's not peaceful in the imperial court by any means. What?
Depends on what form of peace you're talking about. To a lot of white people, it absolutely would be peace for them to not have to give a shit about black people or brown people. For a lot of the white people that don't like the fact that there are people showing solidarity to it, they'll find peace in that. It's not just the bourgeoisie that get peace from this, it's white supremacists. And there are certainly forms of peace that can be vied for within the capitalist framework. Because, how, like, what, are you just going to use a revolution in the imperial court to stop them from invading Afghanistan or any other place? No, you have to struggle for peace. Peace will never bring peace to class warfare. That's the insanity of fascism. The idea that we could have peace to class warfare. But there are forms of peace we can vie for that are forms of peace. For others, it just wouldn't, like, in the sense that we're no longer invading them, or we're no longer trying to, or that we're cutting off financial ties to, let's say, a country like Israel. If that is, like, a certain semblance of, like dropping the barriers around imperialism in a way that creates peace. Peace is such a varied concept. You can stick it up so many different asses if you wanted to. But yeah, there is no peace without justice. And all justice requires struggle. And so there is no, like, what we look at here is this kind of peace is being vied for is that of, like, white supremacist and bourgeois peace, which is that the protests around the people of color or around poor people stop and get out of my way. That's where you get the people that will run over protesters and shit like that. Looking at you, Charlottesville.
And that is true. But I think freedom and peace go hand in hand, but I agree with everything you said. That struggle should be something we should be advocating for, because peace is the end goal, not the goal within itself.
Freedom is also a varied concept. So question one has to then ask, is freedom for whom? Like I say, like, certain groups can have peace while others do not. That's like where we're getting into sort of the framework of it. But another thing to note is peace sells. It sells really well. Who's buying?
That's true. Because the peace for one group is at the expense of another.
No, what I mean is that, like, what I'm also saying is that, like, peace sells. Like, it's something that everyone wants. You say peace, everyone's like, yeah, I want peace. But who's buying? Who's actually buying peace? What does that mean? Well, what's it? Who's the people capable of buying peace? The governments, the bourgeoisie. They have the money to buy peace. They're not buying. That's what that means. Like, peace sells, but who's buying? It's basically peace sells, but nobody's buying. And it's because, like, it sells to everyone, but the people who could actually buy peace in, like, at least a bourgeois framework, they don't do it. They buy, like you say, peace for specific groups. And they only buy it for the fact that it can validate and continuate their that's exactly the album I'm getting it from, Kinetheus. Where they can validate their system and their roles, and that's why like peace in like France or in Britain or in America is always going to be centered around white ethno supremacy. Um, and so like whether it be French nationalism, British nationalism, or the U.S. White nationalism, as it's like to call itself. There's no such thing as a white nation, but America seems so damn certain. And America isn't a nation either; it's a country. But it's also Britain as well. It's more like English nationalism. But yeah, the peace is a convulsified topic.
When you when I ever asked the question, debated any my former coworker about the topic of freedom, every time I ask the question, what does freedom mean? No, but when I actually ask these hard questions, they can't answer. They buckle or give up or just basically talk about the generic response. Oh, we're in a Western civilization, so we're free. I said, okay, who's free? What is freedom? What does it mean? What does freedom mean for the for the exploited and those who are doing the exploitation? What does it mean? Because if you ask, because freedom from a person that's basically in a war zone, it's not going to be the same as someone that has never lived in a war zone. Same thing for peace. Of course, I think they both go hand in hand, and those who live in whatever regions have different values, and those who see, they're going to think of peace in a different way and freedom, because as far as I'm concerned, freedom doesn't really exist, not really, unless you're part of a certain class.
Yeah.
Freedom exists in certain ways. It's just known as privilege. Privilege is a freedom. Freedom is an individual concept for different, freedom is a convulsified concept. Like, there isn't just a form of freedom. There is freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of this, freedom of that. Like, everything has a certain set of freedoms to it. And that is determined by your relationship to class, your relationship to race, gender, what's it like a cis white male, even if he's as poor as I am, still has elements of freedom that I don't get to have accessibility to.
Yeah.
So like it's a convulsified topic, because if you look at freedom as a blunt thing, yeah, sure, it doesn't exist. But if you look at it more on the like relativity of it, everyone in certain ways has freedoms. Like the fact that I live in the first world and not the third world is in and of itself a freedom of not being bombed. So like it's like freedom is just an insert for privilege. It's just a way of making privilege seem a little more like it's about this it's about this fucking like archetypical freedoms crap. Like
check your chat because I sent you an invite. Well, I asked these questions because I think it's very valid because these aren't really discussed very much. Because we've got to be really critical when we talk about these subjects. We can't just like throw these buzzwords around because let's be honest, that's what freedom actually is, and that's what peace is. It really has no meaning. Well, it does, but you know what I mean.
It's used in a nonchalant way.
Like, I'm not saying it doesn't have meaning because it doesn't have meaning, but it does. It's just, it's a I know. I'm not a, it doesn't really make sense how I'm explaining this. If you can't find it on your chat, let's give you a link.
What you are saying is that it is used in such a nonchalant way, it's quite hard to delineate what exactly it is implying.
Because
Which is why I pointed to privilege, because that is what it's associated with, and that's why it's so compulsified.
Because I'm just gonna be real. I hate the word freedom. I know that's gonna like what you hate the word. Yes, I do. Because freedom from one person is tyranny for somebody else. Is a disabled person who's out on a job are they free? No. Yeah, they may have some breadcrumbs from the government, but what kind of life is that to live? I mean, they occasionally gives us breadcrumbs. They do. You can come on, Nat, if you want. I gave you the link. They can occasionally give us breadcrumbs, maybe just give us a check every month. But is that really a way to live? To be at the mercy of the government, where they could basically pull that support at a moment's notice? No, that's not freedom. It's not. It isn't freedom at all. And that's why I just do not like using the word freedom, but I just bring this up because it's a buzzword that's constantly used when you talk to reactionaries or you have a discussion and they say, oh, if you hate America so much, leave it. Wow, I'm speaking from the American perspective here. So I can't. It's like, okay. Majority of the people that say, oh, they hate America are poor fucking people. They're poor as shit. How are they going to fucking leave the country? How are we going to leave? How are we going to leave? How are we going to... Most of us barely have enough money to get by as it is. Yet we're supposed to leave?
It's not my problem, Pinkoid.
I've never left the country. I don't even have a passport. I barely even leave Pennsylvania, or even leave the area I even live in Pennsylvania. If I went to let's say I went to a European country, I would know anybody there. Like, what am I gonna do? Yeah.
I don't know how long Nat has, so I'm gonna give him an opportunity to speak.
I appreciate that because I don't actually have a lot of time. But damn, Stormy, you're on fire today. Like spot on with accuracies. Anyway, freedom, by the way, technically is a word which means free domination. I mean, in my group, we have a theory of social freedom, but like we also give the disclaimer that remember, freedom really means liberty, and liberty really means autonomy. So what people really want is autonomy, which they don't have. And well, as Kara had said, some of us have it from various degrees. Technically, it's really subjective upon privilege.
Not subjective, relative difference.
Hello, right.
Relative, because to be fair, I'm being semantic.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I'm kind of like nervous because like I'm trying to get back into doing this every so often because I'm stage fright. Gangaros is here though.
Yeah.
Hello, Ned. I think this is the first time I've actually spoken with you in person.
I'm not sure. Like I know of you, but you're a favorite among the ones with the MRN badges. So, and you usually have good insight. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that out here, it's crazy. Like they're doing these firework things, and it's really hot out here. It gets really hot in Arizona, like really insanely hot.
Comment and one alternative Earth, Osborn has replaced Shield with Hydra, but on Spider-Punk's Earth, he had his police infected with venom symbiotes, even their dogs. I'm just reading a comment.
Fucking asshole! Yeah. Fucking fireworks.
Well, I mean, it's amazing the lack of consideration of the people in Canada because, like, I actually asked Dr. Weisfall the fires stopped in Canada. They have not.
No, they have not. They're still going.
Yeah, and we're lighting freaking fireworks out here.
Because Americans don't. don't really care about the very place that they live at. They don't care if they like cause a fire and basically ruins people's lives. Oh, because what they care about is their fun. That's it.
It's just a
Yeah, but
microphone.
yeah, I just had a couple things to mention. Like I wanted to give them that perspective on freedom because
Yeah.
I think it's okay to use the word because unfortunately it's in the lexicon, like my group uses it. But
It's a good
real,
word to use. It should not be condemned. What needs to be understood is what is its context. What is it being used for? Because it's a nothing burger. It's a pretty neutral term. If you just condemn it in and of itself, you're condemning a neutral term. It's how it's used.
Sorry, I'm just setting up for the stream.
Don't worry about it.
well, I'll be gone soon. So Prometheus, you should
It's-
totally be on here because I encourage you to keep doing what you're doing lately.
It's used as a way. It's used in different ways by different groups, and by oppressive groups, it's used to protect their privilege, and by those who just have privilege over others in general. White workers will protect their freedoms that they have over black workers. Men in the working class will do what they can to protect their power that they have over women in the working class. Like, this is shit that happens a lot. And these people aren't even the big benefactors of these things. These people don't make loads of money off it, but they do have a power position that they get off it because of their relative position between this. We have to support a freedom that is abolitional of this relative power basis that brings people into a liberated state together. I don't mean state as in like the proletarian worker state, although that's certainly one of the liberated state. I just mean like it's like state of being.
I knew it.
Liberated.
You're fine. I knew what you mean.
I'm
But
just being clear
it should
because
be
we are on a
noted-
stream.
It should be noted that typically when the bourgeois forces say freedom, they
Oh, shit.
technically mean
That's
free
insane.
domination, as in market domination. That's typically what they
No,
mean.
that's a weird extension. No, they're just using the term freedom as a way to coy the people. They couldn't give a shit about the term freedom. If they want to talk about domination, they'll just say domination. Freedom is just the long version of free, and it means oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, even the Nazis used the word freedom. When the Nazi Party was at least officially banned, the Nazi Party came up with the was it the National Socialist Freedom Movement or something like that?
Yeah.
That was the rebranded party that they ran on. So, and they certainly didn't give a shit a lot about freedom for certain groups. Let's just say.
Oh, careful, spoilers.
Can you hear the microphone?
I can hear you.
I can hear you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I just thought everybody should know, like if there should be some contention about. I mean, it's not the big problem with the 4th of July, but the thing that I want to know is why do we launch out fireworks in the middle of the desert when it could actually cause more fire hazards? And like, why doesn't anybody care that Canada's still burning on fire and it's right next door to us? So, just that's kind of what I wanted to say on here. And I
Actually,
didn't
the desert is probably
Hang on,
the
I'll just
safest
wait
place
for
to
a little
launch
bit.
fireworks. It's the built-up areas that are more of a concern, or the areas with wildlife involved.
It's literally
the desert is where they should go. Also, like, it's quite complicated because in a lot of places in America, they're a continent away from Canada, and so like, if the news media is not making them aware of this, they couldn't give a shit. Not just because they're terribly ignorant in a bad way, like also just because of unconscious ignorance. At the end of the day, the media is how we get our punch. If the media isn't reporting it properly, no one's gonna know.
So if they were in like Minnesota, then yeah, them lighting fireworks, especially in like a wooded area, would be a concern. Especially considering, hey, I've been the one getting all the smoke recently. So yeah. So
Well, I mean,
if you're in like Arizona, you're so far removed from Canada. It wouldn't surprise me if there's people out there that don't even know it exists. I'm taking the piss there, but like.
No, but that's true. Most people out here don't know, actually.
No, they know Canada exists. They just don't give a shit.
Well, no, they don't give a shit about that. But like, we also have a big nuclear power plant out here. There's also a lot of biohazards out here. I don't know. There's just
fireworks aren't that deadly. Like the problem with fireworks is what it causes for the wildlife, and it's actually the noise more than the fire hazard that's the problem with fireworks. They
Well,
use
yeah.
very little gunpowder in them. Like having gunpowder in is, I think, what makes people get really spooked. But like, they have fuck all in them.
It's also a big nuisance, I think, because like I don't know, like I'm walking down, the street, and like there's these big blasts that go off, and you're like, it's just,
Okay, it sounds like gunfire.
yeah.
My dog doesn't like it. He gets very upset with it.
Cats
No
hate
dogs
it.
do. No dogs or cats like it. A lot of cats get caught outside on nights where there are fireworks, and those cats will, a good time, lose their life or at least become incredibly traumatized. And that's the problem. The noise of it is so traumatizing to the wildlife, and there is a fire risk. So I think people focus too much on that and not on the noise pollution. We
Well,
seem like humans seem to cut out the idea of noise pollution all the time because it allows us to do all sorts of horrible things.
I can hear it in California. Like referring to Snowy, I was like, holy
every
shit.
time my dogs, they're little ones, when it was 4th of July, one of them just hid under anything they could find because it startled them.
Yeah.
And mind you, this dog freaked out over everything when it came to noise, and fireworks was no exception. No consideration. That's what I hate about these people.
Also, we're living in 2023. Why do we need fireworks being shot off? The reason that they did it originally was because of whatever the hell it was. What fucking fort? No, it was 1812. Which fort was it again?
It's actually a tradition that comes from China. It's complicated. Like the whole using fireworks as a celebratory thing comes from China.
For the New Year, the Chinese New Year is like the festivals and stuff.
They use it for more than just that. It's been like a celebratory thing in China for like 1,000 years now or something. Like,
I'm speaking specifically in the U.S.
No, I'm saying that's where America got it from. They took a cultural thing from China. It's nothing more special than that. They just shot fireworks off as a celebratory.
When has America ever come up with anything original, like ever?
Oh, it certainly has, but like that's just because anything can. But all original things are not very original. Like really, what's the originality of anything that ever exists? It all is based off of something. No one pulls something out their ass. But yeah, America certainly has come up with, at least in the confines of how humans define originality, original things. It's just like America culturally is as a whore when it comes to stealing shit. That's the thing. Like a lot of their stuff's copied, but there are like intrinsically American things that you don't get in Europe.
Well, I think I have to go now, but I'm glad that I was allowed here. By the way, if anybody sees on the Bundes Movement channel that hour-long video, There Is No Zion in Zion, I particularly encourage certain people to make comments and even criticisms. That includes you, Clara, and I did mention you, Dinguros, just because you're prominent with a lot of people. And if anybody can find Joe Euro Squatter, I especially want his commentary. The more I got to understand where the guy's critiques were, they were I have to admit, that's some of the best criticisms I've ever seen come from him. If anybody knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, thanks for letting me on.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome on comrade.
Kara, stay stormy.
Oh well. I'm so exhausted.
You tired?
No, exhausted. It's different.
I see.
I slept 13 hours.
Hello, everyone. I'm back again.
Hey.
Yeah, this is my first time on the stream. And yeah.
Are you from down under?
Yes.
Hey. I've been told I can do the Southern Australian equivalent of a chav very well, like slang speak.
Yeah.
is it? Stevie, pass me the dingus. That's about as far as anyone should go. A
What's
dingus
going on?
means thingy, basically. It's basically thingamajig, but the scientific engineering term for give me the thingamajig would be pass me the dingus. And that is actually in the dictionary, the word dingus. Like, you know, type it in on, like, your computer and watch no red line appear underneath it. And it's like, ah, dingus.
I'll
It's
look up
actually an
dingus
engineering
right
term.
now. It's another word for spaz. Is a person occasionally pisses you off, but in the end you still love them? Or is it another word of a spaz?
No, dingus means a thing that you use, like, oh, pass me the spanner. You go, pass me the dingus.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's an engineering term, not a, like people call people dinguses when they're being a moron because it's also used for being a spanner, or for a spanner, and, like, spanner is used as an insult, so it's just kind of conglomerated like that. So it's just like
Yeah.
calling someone a spanner. Or, like, you can make it funny and sexual, like Bingus the Dingus, or Dingus me and the Bingus. You know,
Dingus the
you make it
Dingus.
funny.
Yeah.
Hey, we just need
So,
like
yeah,
a Canadian here, and we have like the troika of tyranny of the British Empire together with.
Yeah. I'll read this comment. Purple Blastoise says free Australia. And free Australian Palestine.
What's it?
Is
Yeah,
Australia a native
decolonization in
term?
Australia is important. Australia is not a native term. It literally comes from the Dutch. It means Australasia, as in like South Asia.
Austral.
That's why it's because the actual name is Australasia, not just Australia. It's just shortened because reasons. Also, the whole continent used to be called Australasia, not just Australia. They separated it when they come up with Oceania. Though I was taught Australasia growing up, so it's like really confusing. I ended up learning both eventually, and it's just like But yeah, Australia is gonna be one of the most brutal colonies in the British Empire. And you just need to speak about the white Australian policy for like 5 minutes, and you've already got a good enough argument as for why. Oh, and the fact that, like, even though it's not like institutionally like outright, oh, we're continuing it by law, here's the bill, in like spiritually speaking, white Australian policy has not gone away. It's just a little more, and only a little more coveted in how it works. And like Australia has like a lot of sham native institutions that have no power at all, and a lot of the natives in these institutions will tell you that themselves.
And to answer Logan Mansion's game's question, have you seen Bluey? And I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it. But in our country, we have two governments basically. One who's like a social democrat, the Labor Party, and the Liberal Party's like straight up conservative.
Well, the Liberal Party are literally like the Tories. I mean, the Tories are originally a Liberal Party anyway. Like well, not originally. The new Conservatives are a Liberal Party. It's complicated. There's the old Conservatives, and they go back way back. But during the Sir Robert Peel leadership, the same guy who made the police force, he came up with new conservatism or neocons. The actual neocons, the OG ones, not just neocons in like the modern general sense. And they were
He said,
liberals.
before I go, I want to reinforce Confucius should keep making videos. Every day people need to raise their voices. That is the power of the people. So yeah, I think Australia should be a socialist nation in my books, though, rather than just having a common.
Australia's a country. Like Australia, like
a
the United
country, a
States, would
socialist country,
no. What I'm saying is Australia, like the United
rather
States, would
than
give
having the rather than having the Commonwealth having all the power.
for Australia to decolonize, it has to disintegrate. Australia can't be
And
preserved.
that way will expand more land.
Australia has to disintegrate for it to decolonize. It can't just revolt into just a
Alright,
socialist Australia. That couldn't exist because it's like America.
okay.
The white supremacy in that society would prevail.
Yeah.
There has to be a
Yeah.
handing back of the land to the natives, which already exist in such large swaths and groups.
Okay.
Like,
So a socialist Australia wouldn't be possible.
not like, I mean, like a socialism on that land would be possible, but not a socialist Australia.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like,
First,
it would be something completely new.
yeah,
Yeah.
first and foremost, we gotta figure out like what the natives even want to call it in the new socialist era.
I mean, what's it? We got to think of it this way. Like, if we can make the positions of like, okay, there are like native groups that can formulate their own nations in the United States. There are even more and larger native groups in Australia, and how they have a large grip upon their culture and their language. Like there's a lot of struggle to survive against the British onslaught. That's still going on to this day. Um, and so, like, Australia needs to release its grip from Britain, but it also needs to release its grip from white people too. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, like, there's varying groups and all that. I know that, like, what's it? Irish Australians have had a much less bigoted view than a lot of other Australians, but anyone who knows like an inch of Australian history would know why like Celtic Australians would be like that. Why?
Yeah.
Well, uh, trivia. Does anyone know how Irish people mostly got to Australia?
No.
Well, how was Australia colonized by the British?
Um,
Penal colonies.
Exactly. So how did the Irish get there?
There were convicts.
Exactly. As were the Cymraeg as well, because there's a big Cymraeg population as well. Or what's it? Welsh, if you want to use the ethnic slur, means
Yeah.
foreign people. But Cymraeg means like well, Cymru means people of the land, or like friendship of the land, or camaraderie of the land. It's
I think he's
complicated.
breaking up. She's breaking up.
You're fine.
I don't know. That might be your end.
Yeah. Okay, it's her videos. Her camera's loading. It's done.
man, Discord sucks.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Cymraeg
I don't use
as well
Discord
got their,
anymore.
like, colonies.
I'm at Discord. I'm at StreamYard. Shit.
Oh yeah.
Wait, what just happened? I think.
her. Yeah, go on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you didn't. It's fucking man. StreamYard sucks. It really does. Okay. Maybe it'd be better if you disabled your camera.
It's not my fucking connection. It's the mic itself.
Oh. Okay.
It's a fucking USB mic that's on its way out.
Yeah,
the Comrade in fucking Australia also came by penal colonies. A lot of English people did as well, but like, what's it? A big chunk of English people that came to Australia actually come through privilege too. They were either the ones who were like, I mean, a lot of them were sent as like for punishment in the army. They were sent to be overseers, and those people that were overseers eventually became petty bourgeois and bourgeois respectively. And then also you have after the penal colony had like completed a lot of the development of Australia, you then had the shipping off sorry, the moving in of bourgeois white Englishmen, um, typically from the south, and you can kind of see this in a lot of posh Australians. Posh Australians sound like posh Cockneys. Like they sound like they came straight out of the fucking East End of London.
Yeah.
I mean, like, depending on where you are, the Irish accent, sorry, the Australian accent varies so differently because of this. Like, some of them it's just straight Cockney shit. A lot of it it's like Cockney Irish. That's what you see with like Southern Australia. South Australia is very Cockney Irish, but also
Yeah.
like Tasmania. Tasmania is a heavily Irish area of Australia as well.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
you know,
There's a lot to talk
Cockney
about.
is all up in the throat, and so is Australia. American's actually quite similar in its pronunciatives as well.
Yeah.
Australia uses a different vowel set to us, though. Not the letters themselves, just the way they're actually pronunciated.
Yeah, and it's ironic that I'm the only Australian on this particular live stream as well.
And we don't have enough Australian settler representation. Shit.
I agree.
Don't give the Australian government ideas. They'll actually start crying. The white Australians don't get enough representation.
Well, it's always good. It's always good to have more.
And the problem with oh yeah, sorry.
No,
No,
it's
no,
okay.
go for it.
The problem with white Australians is they're very racist towards minority groups and immigrants who are coming into the country. That's an issue. Telling them to go back to their country, telling them, and all these racial slurs that happened.
It's rich coming from fucking white settlers. Why don't they fuck off back to their own country?
Just like the
That's genuinely
Israelis.
just my response. As soon as a settler tells someone to go back to their own country, I'm just like, wait a second. Look who's talking and see. Like,
Yeah. And the reason for immigrants and people who are traveling to Australia because they want a better life for themselves and they want better opportunities. Or
yeah, absolutely.
and some of these people are coming from third world countries. They can't help it.
It's refugees, you know, they haven't got anywhere else to go.
It's only gonna get worse as climate change gets worse.
Yeah.
Like over 700 refugees drowned to death. Like recently, while they reported on the dead billionaires near the ruins of the Titanic.
Yeah.
I think the message couldn't be any clearer. Poor people don't matter, especially if you're brown.
That's a dodgy mindset to think that all poor people don't matter and brown people don't matter. Referring to them though, because that's a bigoted.
And that's what they push.
Bigoted.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all, but that's what they push.
Yeah. And I've heard that in Melbourne, there are far right fascists and TERFs going on. I know it's old news, and they banned the Nazi salute because it's too it's inciting like hate crime or inciting extremism. But I hate the Nazi salute. The Nazi salute is imbecilic.
These turfs don't actually. They have no problems with Nazis. They never have.
You know, like they're simp for Nazis.
Or you'll have J.K. Rowling to basically double down.
I think the better term for TERFs is exterminating reactionary fascists.
Yeah, because they're not progressive in any way.
Yeah,
And I don't think people even use it in that original term anymore. It just means transphobe at this point.
Well, it just when you press these turfs long enough, you like. Majority of them are white women.
yeah,
It's like their actions have consequences. There was a little girl, I forgot where it was, that was attacked by some freaking right-wing psycho, even though because her hair was short.
that's messed up.
Yeah, so this transphobia is also a form of misogyny too. It's just used as an excuse to attack all women, not just trans women, all women. It just
And same with racism as well. I think there's a link there between racism, misogyny, transphobia, whatever the name.
well, of course, you can't separate racism from the misogyny. I mean, look at how white men. Look at how they fetishize. Look how they fetishize Asian women. I keep bringing this up. Look how they fetishize Asian women.
You stole a slate.
I think Kara fell asleep.
Yeah. Is there any issue?
I think she fell asleep.
Okay.
I'll just.
I think we should end the stream.
I think we could go. Okay. I think we could go on for a little bit longer because wasn't done with my point. Actually, I hate to end my stream without finishing what I have to say.
All right.
Like, I know this because I've been around these fuckers long enough to know how they think. Like, Asian women are fetishized by these fuckers. I'm not joking.
Yeah.
And of course, they do the same for brown women and black women too, but in a different way. For these people, the only woman that's worth anything to them is a woman they can like use as a sex doll, because that's all they look at women. They don't look at women as inhuman beings. They don't look at them as people. These are the same kind of people that lose their shit when a woman in a video game or a comic book or in a movie is not as sexy as they were before. It's like women, most women do not want to be objectified. They just don't. They don't want to be looked at as a piece of meat, because that's what most of these fucking right-wing men look at these women.
Yeah, which proves that these right-wingers are degenerates.
Not to mention, in general, it's like, what happens when these women basically become too old to be considered attractive to these men? They'll just move on to a younger woman. That's how these fucking degenerates are. I don't even like using that word because that's like fascist speak, but they are the exact same thing that they accuse us of being.
Oh yeah.
I mean, these people haven't changed from the times of colonialism to the present. Like that's they treated like women, indigenous women, the same way. Like,
do you want to? Shall we end the stream or?
Well, Does anybody have any last things to say?
Well, I've got the last thing to say. This. Thank you for the StreamYard link, and this is my first time joining the stream, and I apologize for not saying much. Though it's because I'm not used to StreamYard yet.
You've actually said a decent amount for a little time you had. So you actually said a good amount, actually. So don't feel bad.
Oh yeah.
I had stage fright myself when I first did this. I wasn't able to do it as well, like when I first did as I am now. You'll get used to it in time. The more you do it.
I couldn't even speak in public until I was in college.
And what type of Australia I'm from? I'm from the ACT, the Australian Capital Territory, though.
Oh.
Anyone?
Oh, fuck. Jesus.
I think that is that
fuck the Supreme Court.
Wait, what happened?
Anyone that
High Tech.
Sorry.
High Tech 6039 commented, anyone seen the gay couple signed by a Christian web designer who won the Supreme Court may not exist.
Yeah, that was the one court ruling that they did. Yeah, legalized discrimination. Yeah. Court are fascist.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court is a fucking institution of fascists. What reason does it serve to exist other than just to reinforce bourgeois supremacy?
Yeah. Do you think gays are objectified too in some ways, or?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Lesbians and gays are definitely objectified. I mean, especially lesbian women. Like the ideal lesbian women are sexy, big-breasted women that.
Yeah.
And I blame porn for this, for actually doing this. And men, it's basically, they're. I don't know, I can't speak for men, but I know in the anime fandoms, I could speak from experience. Gay men are fetishized there. It's like it's usually like these emo-looking male characters that may look a little bit feminine, and people like to write erotic stories with them, and you probably can use your imagination.
We'll probably take advantage of him in the most macabre way.
Well, it's usually it's smuff. That's usually what it is.
Yeah.
It's also porn. Gay men are obviously fetishized in porn too, but I'm just saying that it's multiple aspects of society. Like our pop culture fetishizes like gay men, lesbians, Asian women, any kind of thing that they do, that they sexualize them. They're not treated as people.
Yeah.
I don't know how to be honest with you. I don't know. I don't much more. So I like to. Does anyone have any last words to end this stream?
All right. Gotta head out now, and I'll see you guys soon.
Don't be a stranger. You're always welcome to come on.
Yeah.
All right. My last comments is basically to bring us back around to America. That America is an evil, genocidal, proto-Nazi empire that has never really experienced, except for the Civil War, has never really experienced an actual quote-unquote real war on their soil. Outside of one exception, there's one exception to that rule, but Americans are the biggest crybabies in existence.
And the
biggest veterans and the
biggest cowards.
Yeah, they'll honor their veterans and everything else like that. But it's who is more honorable. The people that committed, like, who's braver? The people that committed the 9/11 attacks, driving the airplanes in there, or the people that run basically ships off the coast of Afghanistan bombing innocent people? I'll let you figure that one out.
I will answer. Obviously, the hijackers.
Yeah. Americans are very cowardly. They live off the privilege of not having basically gigantic enemies on their borders. If Americans actually fought a real war that killed like millions of Americans, like you would actually see like serious upheaval in this country, like serious fucking upheaval.
You know, I one time made a joke on Facebook that Americans won't start a civil war because Americans are so fat that they would have a heart attack before the first shot is fired, and I got banned for a month for hate speech for saying that. Because it's true. How much percentage of the population is obese?
Well, I mean, how would Americans start a civil war if they can't even go like literally a few days without their consumer products? Now imagine that on like a wide scale of not having access to fresh water, food. The fat Yankee Americans would go completely insane. They'd be like, okay, we gotta stop this now. Seriously.
A civil war in America would not be pretty.
That's why the people pushing for it are usually the people that would probably be like, "Oh, I don't want to be dealing with this shit. I'm leaving the country."
Well,
I'd say that isn't a threat, but you know.
These people don't freaking. Majority of these people have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
Like these supporters of empire, did they not realize they would basically destroy the very country they claim to love? Of course, I do think America will devolve into a civil war eventually, under racial relations. But it ain't going to be this fantasy that the right wing talk about. 1776 will happen again. It's like, no, it won't.
I mean, it's more likely to be something like the Turner Diaries, if anything.
If anything, America, what's going to happen? The empire is not going to go out with a bang. It's going to go out with a whimper.
Although it might actually go out with a bang too. But
Florida could go underwater in 5 years due to climate change.
If nuclear weapons aren't involved.
A whimper nuke that doesn't exist.
Not yet, at least, but they're working on mini nukes. So.
Holiday. It's a trash holiday. The only kind of people that truly celebrate it are the most fascist people in the population. Most people don't care about 4th of July other than, oh, it's a day off. Oh, I get to have some fun for a few hours lighting some fireworks or watching fireworks. I get to watch shit blow up. It's like that's the real reason people like 4th of July or good barbecue. They don't care about this patriotic bullshit. Most Americans don't care about this shit. It's only the petty bourgeois that are truly patriotic.
Yeah, because the bourgeois need nationalism, at least the national, in order to keep the population in check, basically.
Yeah, and well, to end this stream, I'm just gonna say this: death to America, death to Zionism, free Turtle Island, fuck 4th of July, fuck the Supreme Court, fuck Joe Biden, and fuck every fascist that dumbs
fuck
down
voting blue.
What?
Yeah, fuck fascism.
Fuck
Down with
Republicans. Yeah.
Fuck Democrats. And the very last thing I'm going to say, free Turtle Island.